Welcome back to part 3 of the 53 ounce Mega Monster bar. And what we're going to do now is recover our pure gold sponge out of here. But first I got to drain off this liquid or pour it off. And what we'll do is we'll add it to a waste container. As I'm pouring this off, I notice I've got a green tint to the waste solution. It may be some platinum group metals. Here's a look at the gold after we get the waste solution off of it. Notice it's got some yellow liquid down in there with it. And here I'm doing a stannous test on that yellow liquid. And if you notice here, we're going to get a positive result. It's giving me a brown stain. I suspect that there may be some platinum group metals in here. This would account for the layering during the evaporation and during precipitation. I'm going to try rinsing the gold with some hydrochloric acid. And if you notice, the consistency of the gold just does not look right. I'm adding hot water to the gold. And every time I do, I get a yellow colored liquid form. I must have done 5 of these rinses, and each time I get this yellow colored liquid. Alright, here's what the gold looks like so far. I get down in here and get some of this on a piece of filter paper and do a stannous test. This is after multiple rinses. I'm still getting an indication of precious metals. It almost looks like platinum group metals. My waste containers are full. I poured off a lot of gold down here in the bottom from this beaker. So there's quite a bit down there waiting to be recovered at a later date. Here's my stock pot. It's full of pieces of copper. I'm adding some more copper. This will cement the precious metals out of my waste solution. Let me pour this waste off into my stock pot now. There's some gold down in the bottom of this one as well. We'll recover that in a later video. I'll take this out and bubble some air through it, let it react under a rain cover outdoors. Let me get down in here and grab some of this material, or this liquid. Let me do some tests on it, possibly. I'm adding some hydrochloric acid to dilute this just a little. And now what we're going to do is add a few drops of DMG. I've got some DMG here in hot water. I'm going to test for palladium. I'm going to add some DMG to our solution. And if we get a precipitate, that means we've got palladium. It's been about 5 minutes since I added that DMG, and I really don't see any kind of precipitate forming in here. Yep, definitely got precious metals in solution. I've got some ferrous sulfate. This will precipitate out gold. If we've got gold present, just going to add a little spoon of this in there. See what happens. And I do see the gold precipitating out of solution. Alright, I think we've got gold coming out of solution, accumulating on the bottom. Let's test our liquid. It's got a amber yellowish tint to it. I don't see any reaction. So I think all that is gold in solution. Let's just try the obvious here. I've got some ferrous sulfate, or I've got some stump out rather. I'm just going to add a little bit of this stump out to this stuff in here and see what this does. Just added the stump out, and the color has disappeared in part of it where I added the stump out, and I think I see a little bit of reaction going on with some of the particles of gold. Now we're seeing a reaction. Looks like we got gold coming out of solution. Glad I had the camera on for that. This is baffling. I've never seen this before. Not quite sure what's happening here. I'm going to add some hydrochloric acid to the gold. Not very much. And now what I'll do is shake this up. I see a yellow color developing in there, like there's gold in solution. Stannous is very sensitive. If it's just even got just a little bit of gold, it should pick it up on here. And I don't see anything. I'm not sure what we got going on here. Here's our test. You can see there's gold that came out of solution with the ferrous sulfate. What I think I'm going to do is just go ahead and rinse this over and over with water until all the color is gone. I think what we'll do now is just add some warm water, and we're going to set this up on the heat back here and give this a boil. It's starting to look a lot better now that I've got all the rinsing done. Just let this boil. Let's go ahead and get this solution poured off of here. Here's a look at the gold. It looks spectacular. Now the question becomes, what do we do now? The gold looks good, but when we did the precipitation, I did not like the color and look of the waste solution after we had done the precipitation. So I think the best thing to do here is go ahead and refine this one more time. I mean, I knew that bar had contamination in it. I'm adding 2 liters of hydrochloric acid. I knew that bar had contamination and probably needed to be refined before we melted up into our 53 ounce Mega Monster bar. In the first refining, we had metallic gold. This is metallic gold in this beaker, but it's in a powdered form, so it's going to be much easier to dissolve. The metal that we poured into shot took a lot more nitric to get it to go into solution. So we should be able to use some incremental nitric acid dosing here and carefully control the amount of nitric going into the reaction so that we can just add just the right amount of nitric acid to get our gold to just dissolve and add no more. Alright, so I've got what, 120 milliliters of nitric acid. We're going to go ahead and pour this in now. Form aqua regia in here. It's off the heat. Alright, before I forget, I'm going to add a dose of sulfuric acid just in case we've got any lead present in our gold. Shouldn't have, but doesn't hurt to put it in there. Put it on some heat now. And let this go ahead and dissolve completely. Oh yeah, it's already starting to heat up from the reaction. I've got most of the gold dissolved. There's a little bit left down in there. But rather than trying to add more nitric and get the rest of that to go in solution, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the heat off, let this cool down a little bit. I'm going to transfer this solution that should just be gold in solution. There's no nitric in there. You can tell all the fumes are gone and there's still gold down in the bottom of the beaker, so that tells me all the nitric has been consumed, and we'll pour this off and dissolve the rest of the gold down in there. I've allowed this to cool down just a touch, so now what we're going to do is transfer this solution out of this beaker because I've put a bunch of the gold in solution here. All the excess nitric has been consumed out of here now. And I don't want to add more nitric to get the rest of the gold that's down in the bottom of this beaker to go into solution. Just going to add some hydrochloric acid. That's probably 250, 300 milliliters or so. I'll put this back up on the heat. Let's put a cover on this thing. I've got some hydrochloric acid in a bottle. I'm gonna rinse down the sides. As usual, and add about a half a milliliter of sulfuric acid. I always add this no matter what. It's hard to judge, but that looks like that could be 2 to 4 troy ounces. I've got probably 300 or 400 milliliters of hydrochloric acid in there with it. So what we'll do is we're going to measure out about 25 milliliters to start with. We'll go with 30 milliliters of nitric acid. I'm going to just add this right on in. got the other camera on time lapse, and I just wanted to show this. This is the solution that we poured off. And if you look in there, metallic gold is beginning to precipitate out all by itself. Just baffling to me. You know, I've got the whole world watching, and nothing's going right with this batch. It's quite beautiful, but at the same time it's aggravating, because I don't know why that gold is coming out of solution like that before I want it to. Fairly certain I've got all the gold to go into solution. There's not a bunch of fumes in there, so we don't have any excess nitric. I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to push this back out of the way. Here you can see there's a few particles of gold left undissolved. That's a good thing. That means that we've consumed all the nitric in here, so there shouldn't be any excess nitric left in this solution. If you look over here at this one, this is the one we poured off earlier, and we've got gold precipitating out of that solution all by itself. I've got to cool this solution off before I try to filter it. I'm just going to set it back up here out of the way. Got some ice in this container. These pieces of undissolved gold in here, I'll add those into my waste container, recover it later. Now let's see if we can get some of this to go into our ice here. Alright, thankfully this is pulling through this filter much faster than in the previous video. Like I said, I'll put the little bit of gold in the bottom of this beaker, add it right to my temporary waste container. We can get it out later. This is our ferrous sulfate experiment. Add that into the temporary waste beaker. We'll get that gold later on. This flask is full. That's what we're going to do, is set it back here. This little bit of gold will go into my waste container and we'll get it later. Here we go. We'll get this gold out at a later date. It looks like a lot, but it's really not. This last little bit should pull through quickly for me. I was trying to figure out what was in the filter. And what you can see there is it's gold that's coming out of solution. It's not contamination. It's gold, metallic gold that's come out of solution and starting to plug the filter up. We're finally done here. Got everything pulled through the filter. Let's get this funnel off here now. Got all our solutions pulled through the filter. Move this out of the way. Now I'll divide up the solutions into these two large beakers for precipitation. Alright, here we go. We're going to do the precipitation now. Just going to start adding some stump out in to each beaker. That's starting to look pretty good. Okay, this one's shaping up as well. Alright, I'm just going to add some more stump out to this side. Over here. We'll do the same for this beaker here on this side. Oh yeah, we're starting to get a little bit of white foam. That's a good thing. This one looks like it's done. I think we've got this one. Alright. We've got all the gold out of this one. I think we've got a successful refining here. And so we're going to let this stuff settle out real good. Cover these up. And what we'll do is we'll call it here. This will conclude part 3. In part 4, we'll gather up our gold and get ready to pour the 50 troy ounce Mega Monster Bar. Thank you for watching.